my friends. Today I'm going to tell you the story of how the woman who was supposed to be my second mom became my greatest adversary. When my dad remarried, I thought I was gaining a best friend, a mentor, and a new maternal figure in my life. Instead, I got someone who saw my own nascent light as a personal threat and unbearable competition, and who spent months waging a silent, insidious war to destroy my confidence from the inside out. But what she didn't know, what she could never have anticipated, was that her campaign of sabotage would not lead to my ruin, but to my rebirth. It would lead me to discover something far stronger and more enduring than simple revenge. So guys, please show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Let's begin. I was 15 years old when my dad married Veronica, and for a brief, shimmering moment, I thought I'd hit the jackpot of blended families. She was a whirlwind of everything my own quiet, reserved mother was not. Young, impeccably stylish, and almost desperately eager to be my friend, she swept into my life and immediately began a campaign of transformation. She took me shopping for clothes that weren't from the clearance rack at a department store, patiently guided me through the arcane mysteries of makeup tutorials online, and even, through some miracle of persuasion, talked my dad into letting me dye my hair a vibrant auburn, the same shade as hers. "We're gonna be the best of friends, you and I," she'd say, squeezing my hand with a conspiratorial warmth as we sat side by side getting our nails done in matching shades of crimson. For the first 6 months, our life together felt like a perfect, sun-drenched montage from a feel-good movie. Then, I started to receive attention at school, small sparks of recognition for my own talents, and the perfect facade began to crack. The first red flag, a tiny, almost unnoticeable signal of the darkness to come, appeared during a parent-teacher night. My English teacher, Mr. Halprin, a man known for his rigorous standards and sparse praise, was genuinely impressed with an essay I had written on the concepts of fairness and justice. "Dahlia has such a thoughtful, nuanced perspective," he said, his eyes bright with intellectual respect. "Her writing shows real, profound insight beyond her years." I lit up, a warm glow of pride spreading through my chest, and I turned to Veronica, eagerly waiting for her to share in my moment. But she just cut him off, her voice flat and dismissive. "She gets that from her dad," she said, without a hint of a smile. "I've been helping her a lot with her sentence structure." This was a complete fabrication, but I was so stunned I just stayed quiet. The next time was at my dad's annual work barbecue. His business partner Leo, a kind man who had known me since I was a little girl, was asking about my ambitious college plans. Just as I started to talk about my dream of attending a performing arts school, Veronica suddenly stepped in, wrapping her arm around my shoulders with a grip that felt more like ownership than affection. "Oh, Dahlia is still figuring things out," she said with a saccharine, sweet laugh, patting my shoulder as if I were a pet. "She's just so lucky to have me to guide her through these confusing years." Leo looked puzzled, his brow furrowing. "Didn't you just say she's only been your stepdaughter for about 8 months? Veronica's arm tensed, her perfectly manicured nails digging slightly into my shoulder. "Time doesn't matter," she said, her voice a little too sharp, "when you have natural motherly instincts." Things took a much darker turn when I, against all odds, landed the lead role in our school's spring musical. I'd been a dedicated member of the choir for years, but this was my first major solo role, the culmination of years of quiet practice and passion. My dad was ecstatic, bursting with a pride that felt like sunshine. He even started talking about inviting his entire office to the opening night performance. Veronica, however, was not thrilled. "Are you absolutely sure you're ready for that kind of pressure, honey?" she asked at dinner that night, her fork poised over her plate. "Stage fright can be utterly humiliating. I've seen it destroy people." "I'll be fine," I told her, my confidence unwavering. "Mrs. Hartley, the drama teacher, says I've got real potential. She probably tells all her students that," Veronica muttered under her breath, stabbing viciously at her steak. "It's important to be realistic." Then, she began a subtle but effective campaign of sabotage. She started scheduling urgent and unavoidable dentist visits for me during my rehearsal times. Last-minute family dinners with relatives I'd never met before would suddenly pop up on nights I had crucial choreography practice. When I complained, she would just sigh with an air of profound maternal exhaustion. "I'm just trying to keep you from embarrassing yourself, honey. It comes from a place of love." 3 weeks before opening night, I was practicing my most difficult song in my room when Veronica barged in without knocking. "You need to shut it down," she snapped, her voice stripped of all its usual sweetness. "Some of us are trying to work." "I'm sorry," I said, startled. "I thought you were downstairs watching TV?" "Well, I'm not now." Your screeching gave me a splitting headache. Screeching. That one word felt like just rehearsing for the musical, I said softly, my voice suddenly small. "About that?" she replied, a strange, cold smile playing on her lips as she sat down on my bed without asking, claiming my space as her own. Veronica had spent months making me feel like I was her special project, like she was graciously teaching me how to be part of some secret exclusive adult club. It had felt exciting and sophisticated at first. But now I was beginning to realize that the sabotage wasn't an accident. It started small with acts of plausible deniability. My sheet music, which I guarded like treasure, would suddenly vanish from my backpack, only to reappear days later in a completely different room of the house. My costume fittings were mysteriously moved to different times without anyone telling me, causing me to miss them and fall behind schedule. When I would vent my frustration to my dad, Veronica would always feign surprise and concern. "Oh, that's so odd," she'd say, her brow furrowed with a performance of deep sympathy. "Maybe you just need to be a little more organized, sweetie. High school can get so overwhelming." She was a master at making it sound like I was just being a forgetful, scattered teenager. After a while, her gaslighting started to work. I started to believe her. Maybe I was being careless. Maybe I was just imagining things. But then I noticed a chilling pattern. All of the miscommunications happened on days when Veronica was home alone after I'd left for school. She had a master key to every single room in the house. My dad had given it to her when they first got married, a gesture of trust. She should feel welcome everywhere, he had said. I started finding undeniable signs that she'd been in my room while I was gone. Were slightly shifted. My private journal was moved from its hiding spot under my mattress. The clothes in my drawers were neatly rearranged, but in ways that felt subtly, intentionally wrong. She was sending a message no space was truly mine, nothing was safe from her. She never said anything directly cruel to my face. Instead, her attacks came in the form of subtle, disguised jabs, compliments that were actually carefully crafted insults. "That dress is absolutely adorable on you," she'd say while physically adjusting the neckline with a critical eye, "though it does draw a bit of attention to your hips. Maybe something a bit more flattering around the middle would be better. Or, your hair looks so much nicer when it's straight. The curls are just a bit wild." Not everyone really gets that artsy vibe, you know? She was a professional at giving compliments that were designed to make me feel worse about myself. I would leave our conversations feeling a vague sense of unease, wondering if there was something fundamentally wrong with me that I couldn't see. She'd say things like, "You're so incredibly smart, Dahlia. But sometimes you just miss the social cues. People don't always understand your particular type of intelligence." Or, after I'd finished practicing a difficult song, she'd smile and say, "What a sweet voice. Very earnest. Not everyone can carry a tune, so that's something, right?" That word, earnest, hurt every single time. It was a verbal pat on the head, designed to make me sound like a try-hard and amateur, instead of someone with real developing skill. Then she started to meticulously dismantle my friendships. She would interrogate me about every single conversation I had with my friends. One day, she said, with a look of deep, feigned concern, "Your friend B seemed a little jealous when you told her you got the lead role. You know, sometimes people don't handle their friends' success very well. Maybe you should be careful about what you share with her." She planted these seeds of doubt so smoothly, so expertly, that I didn't even realize they were growing into weeds until it was too late. She would manufacture fake family emergencies moments before I was supposed to leave for big social plans, a party, a movie night, a sleepover. Then, when I was visibly upset about having to cancel yet again, she would come for me like a caring, devoted parent. "I'm sure they'll understand that family has to come first," she'd say, rubbing my shoulders with a proprietary air. "If they're your real friends, they'll support your priorities." But my friends, understandably, started to drift away. They didn't understand the constant last-minute cancellations or why I seemed so distant and different. And I didn't know how to explain it to them, because I was still trying to understand why this woman, who claimed to love me, seemed to be actively rooting against my happiness. One afternoon, I made the mistake of telling her that I was thinking about applying to Lionheart School of the Arts, a prestigious and highly competitive performing arts college. A big, audacious dream of mine. She laughed. Not a warm, gentle laugh, but a cold, mocking, and utterly dismissive one. "Lionheart? Oh, sweetheart, let's be realistic. You should focus on something you can actually achieve. A community college might have a nice teaching certificate program. That's much more practical for someone with your limitations." I froze, the word hanging in the air between us like a physical blow. I asked, my voice barely a whisper, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. "Well," she said, her tone now syrupy and cruel, a velvet glove over an iron fist, "you're talented. For someone from a small town. But these real art schools, they're looking for students who have been training with the best coaches since they were 5 years old. Students with natural, God-given gifts. The kind of raw talent that simply can't be taught." Every single word felt like a small, sharp blade, methodically slicing into the fragile confidence I had worked so hard to build over the years. "Give me back my journal," I said, my voice shaking with a rage that surprised me. I could see it in her hands, open to a recent entry. She flipped through the pages slowly, deliberately, as if she were savoring every private, vulnerable thought. "I think your father should read this," she said, her voice dropping to a low, vicious whisper. "Especially the parts where you write about feeling like an outsider in this house. Or this lovely section here where you wonder whether I actually love you or just fake it for him." My stomach dropped. I remembered writing those exact words months ago in a moment of deep confusion and loneliness. "I wrote that before we got close," I said desperately, a pathetic attempt to reason with her. She tilted her head. "Did we get close, Dahlia?" she asked, her voice dripping with mock sincerity. "Or did I just get better at managing you?" And just like that, the mask was gone. The cool, fun stepmom who once painted my nails and called me Hermione had vanished. In her place stood someone cold, calculating, and utterly terrifying. "I know what you're doing," I said quietly. "Oh," she replied. "And what exactly am I doing?" "You're jealous of me." The slap came so fast, so unexpectedly that I didn't even see it coming. My face stung with a white, hot pain. I stared at her, stunned into silence. She looked just like the mean girls at school, a twisted, venomous expression on her face. Except she wasn't a classmate, she was supposed to be the adult in the room. To make me feel safe? Don't you ever accuse me of being jealous of a child, she hissed, her face contorted with a rage that was shocking in its intensity. But her violent outburst, her loss of control had told me everything I needed to know. You are jealous, I whispered, my hand gently touching my burning cheek. You hate that Dad loves me. You hate that I might actually be good at something. You hate that other people notice me? Her hand went up again, as if to strike me a second time, but this time she stopped herself, her eyes darting nervously towards the door. You know nothing about adult relationships, she spat, her voice a low, venomous hiss. Nothing about what it takes to keep a marriage alive. You are a selfish, spoiled little girl who thinks the entire world revolves around her. No? I said, feeling something new and powerful shift deep inside of me, a hardening of my own resolve. I'm a daughter who thought she was gaining a mom, but you never wanted to be my stepmother, did you? You just wanted me gone? That night, consumed by a mixture of fear, anger, and a profound sense of isolation, I did something I hadn't done in months. I called my real mom. After the divorce, my mom had moved to Oregon to start a new life, and the physical distance between us had slowly, painfully become an emotional one. Veronica, I now realized, had played a huge, insidious part in that. She always had a ready-made excuse for why I couldn't call or visit. She's starting over. Sweetie, Veronica would say whenever I mentioned missing my mom. It's hard for divorced women to move on when their kids keep pulling them back into the past. Maybe it's best to let her heal. But that night, I finally made the call. My mom picked up on the first ring. Dahlia. Her voice was surprised, but warm and full of a concern I hadn't realized how much I missed. Hearing okay? You sound, a voice so gentle and so genuinely concerned, broke something open inside of me that had been locked away for months. I hadn't realized how much I missed being someone's priority, someone who cared about how I felt, not just how I looked or how I performed. I couldn't hold it in anymore. The floodgates opened, and I told her everything. Veronica's subtle manipulations, the constant disguised jabs, the way she made me feel small and insignificant. I told her about how she had tried to get me to quit the musical, the invasion of my diary, the slap, the way she had systematically chipped away at my confidence until I felt like a stranger to myself. My mom was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Oh, sweetheart, she finally said with a sorrow that was clearly for me. I was so afraid something like this might happen. What do you mean? I asked, confused. Your father called me before he married Veronica, she explained. He wanted to make sure that I was okay with her being around you. I looked her up online after that call. Like what? I pressed. She was fired from her last job, my mom said, her voice low. At a high school, there were concerns from other faculty members about how she acted around her students, especially the talented girls. That she had serious boundary issues and a documented history of unhealthy competition with teenagers. I felt a cold chill run through me, and her social media. My mom paused. Bitter posts. Things like, teenage girls today are so spoiled and entitled. Someone needs to humble them? Stuff like that? My stomach turned. Why didn't you tell Dad? I asked. I tried, honey, she said gently, but he was so happy, so in love. I didn't want to sound like the bitter ex-wife. She was young, she was beautiful, and she seemed to absolutely adore him. I hoped that maybe I was just being paranoid. What else did you find? She used to be a drama teacher, Mom said. But she was let go after multiple parents complained that she would deliberately put down her most talented students and favor the girls who were less skilled but easier to control. Why would she do that? I asked. Because she needed to be the center of everything, my mom said, her voice filled with a sad understanding. She couldn't stand being outshone. Talented, confident, Golderfield threatened. My heart sank. This wasn't just about me. Veronica had a clear established pattern. There was also a lawsuit. Mom added, her voice even quieter now. A girl claimed that Veronica had given her the wrong scholarship application deadlines on purpose. She missed out on some major life-changing opportunities. The case was settled out of court, but there's a public record of the complaint. I didn't know what to say. This wasn't just one person being cruel and petty. This was a whole, horrifying history of it. Over and over again now she was doing it to me. Why didn't you try harder to tell Dad? I asked again, a note of desperation in my voice. Mom sighed, a sound heavy with regret. Because I was afraid that he would think I was just trying to ruin his new happiness. I was afraid he'd accuse me of being jealous. And honestly, Dahlia, I hoped with all my heart that I was wrong. I thought that maybe, just maybe, she'd treat you better because you were his daughter. What do I do now? I whispered. You start documenting everything. She said, her voice suddenly firm and clear. I do. Call me if things get any worse. I can be on a plane and there in 8 hours. Do not let her cut you off from the people who care about you. That's how people like her win. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't alone. I felt like I had someone in my corner. So I started keeping records. I began to secretly record Veronica's comments on my phone whenever she would corner me alone. I took photos of my mysteriously vanished sheet music when it would reappear in odd places, like the back of the linen closet. I took screenshots of the text messages confirming appointments that she had mysteriously rescheduled without my knowledge. In less than a week, I had a growing file of clear, undeniable proof. Veronica wasn't just being a difficult stepmother. She was actively, deliberately, and maliciously trying to sabotage me, and the closer we got to the opening night of the musical, the more desperate and reckless she became. She started gossiping about me to my dad's co-workers, casually dropping poisonous remarks at dinner parties. "I'm just so concerned about Dahlia," she'd say with a theatrical, worried sigh. "She has these completely unrealistic ideas about a career in performing. It's so hard trying to support a teenager who just won't accept her own limits." The adults around the table would nod sympathetically, while I sat there, stunned into a horrified silence. "I just don't want her to be completely crushed when she finds out that performing isn't her true calling," she'd say, her voice dripping with fake, maternal concern. "Some kids just need to understand that participation trophies aren't the same as real actual talent." She always said it just loud enough for me to hear. And it worked. I started to believe that even my dad's friends thought I was being delusional and ridiculous. The gaslighting at home intensified. She'd hide my homework or move my belongings, then feign deep concern when I couldn't find them. "You've just seemed so scattered lately, sweetie," she'd say, her voice as smooth as silk. "Maybe all this stress from the musical is just too much for you. It's okay to admit that you're overwhelmed." She even started monitoring my phone calls, always asking who I was talking to, what we had said and why. When I tried to push back, she would smile and call it simple concern. "I'm just looking out for you," she'd say. "Teenage girls are so easily influenced. I just don't want you making bad choices because of peer pressure." She managed to convince my dad to implement new, draconian rules about my phone usage. "Kids just spend too much time online these days," she said during a family meeting that felt more like a public shaming. "I've been reading all these articles about how it increases anxiety, especially for girls Dahlia's age. I think we should limit her screen time for her own mental health." The truth was, I hadn't been anxious about the musical at all, not until she had made it completely impossible for me not to be. Then came the coffee visits. She started inviting her friends over on the exact days and times that I was scheduled to rehearse at home. They'd sit in the living room, directly below my bedroom, loudly chatting about their own children's sensible, realistic accomplishments while I tried to sing upstairs. It was all a meticulously planned part of her quiet, insidious campaign to silence me. "I'm just so proud of Emily," one of Veronica's friends said loudly from the living room one afternoon. "She's so smart for choosing to major in accounting. You know, these creative careers are just so unpredictable and unstable." "Exactly," Veronica agreed smoothly, her voice carrying up the stairs. "I keep trying to help Dahlia understand that these little passion projects should really just stay hobbies. It's so much safer to be practical." They all laughed and nodded in agreement, their voices a chorus of condescension, just loud enough for me to hear how foolish they thought I was for daring to dream. 3 days before the show, I found Veronica in the garage. She was holding my costume, the beautiful, made dress that the costume department had spent weeks working on. It was ruined, completely and utterly shredded. It wasn't torn by accident, it was cut with clean, sharp, deliberate slashes, as if someone had taken a pair of scissors to it piece by agonizing piece. She looked up at me, her face a mask of dramatic, theatrical shock. "Oh no, Dahlia! I was just trying to steam it for you. And the steamer must have malfunctioned. I am so sorry, honey." The steamer in question was unplugged and sitting neatly on a shelf on the other side of the room. "And steam doesn't make clean, sharp cuts like," I said. My voice quiet but as steady as a rock. It was the first time I had a piece of undeniable, physical proof. "That is a very serious accusation, Dahlia," she replied calmly, but her eyes were as hard and cold as stones. "I think you're just under a lot of pressure. Maybe this is a sign from the universe that you should step down." "Sometimes the universe gives us these little warnings. I'll wear something else," I said, refusing to let her see me break, refusing to let her win. "With 3 days' notice?" she scoffed. "Be realistic. The other girls have been practicing for weeks. You can't just throw something together at the last minute and expect it to work. The show deserves someone who is truly ready." But I was done being realistic, at least by her twisted definition. I called Mrs. Hartley, our drama teacher, and explained what had happened. I didn't outright accuse Veronica, but I made it crystal clear that the damage was deliberate and malicious. Mrs. Hartley, a force of nature in her own right, showed up at our house within the hour. She arrived with a rolling rack full of backup costumes from the drama department's emergency supply. When Veronica opened the door, her face went pale with shock. "Dahlia told me about the little accident," Hartley said politely, but her voice had a sharp, steely edge. "These things happen. Thankfully, we always have a few solid options for replacement." Veronica, flustered, tried to regain control of the situation. "You know, I've been thinking that Dahlia might just be too overwhelmed with all of this. Maybe she should what?" A deep voice came from behind her. It was my dad. He had just walked in from work. Hartley turned to him with a warm but incredibly sharp smile. "I was just telling Veronica how immensely proud you should be of Dahlia. In the 15 years I've been teaching, she is, without a doubt, the most gifted and dedicated student I have ever had the pleasure of working with." Then she delivered the final, beautiful blow. "In fact, a representative from the State University's Music Conservatory is coming to see her perform on Friday night." My dad's face lit up with a pure, unadulterated pride that I hadn't seen in months. "Really? That's amazing. I had no idea, he said, clearly stunned. Oh, she's just been modest, Mrs. Hartley replied, keeping her eyes fixed on Veronica's face. Sometimes, the most talented students are the ones who doubt themselves the most. But the university representatives specifically asked to see Dahlia perform after I sent them her audition recording. I watched Veronica's face twitch through a rapid succession of emotions, first surprise, then something sharper and uglier, pure unadulterated anger, before she finally forced a tight, brittle smile that didn't come close to reaching her eyes. That's just wonderful, she said through clenched teeth. We're all so very proud of her. After Mrs. Hartley left, Veronica caught me alone in the hallway while my dad was in the shower. You think you're so clever, don't you? She hissed, all of her practiced sweetness gone, replaced by a raw, venomous bite. But you have absolutely no idea who you're messing with. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, my heart beginning to pound. She smiled. But it was the kind of smile that chilled you to the bone. The kind of smile that made you realize you were in the presence of someone truly dangerous. Opening night is in 3 days. She whispered, her voice a low, menacing purr. A lot can happen in 3 days. Food poisoning, sudden family emergencies, equipment failures. The theater world is just so unpredictable. Her threat couldn't have been clearer. You wouldn't, I said quietly, though a cold dread was already creeping up my spine, because I knew that she absolutely would. Wouldn't what, sweetie? She replied, her voice once again dripping with that fake, innocent sweetness. School productions are famous for their last-minute problems. Things break, leads get sick. Families have emergencies, it happens all the time. She wasn't warning me, she was promising me. That night, I heard her on the phone in her office, her voice low and secretive. I need a favor, Derek, she said. There's a little performance at the local high school on Friday night. I need something to go wrong. Nothing dangerous, just enough to humiliate her. She can't be allowed to go on thinking that she's some kind of star. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I pressed my ear to the door, straining to catch every single word. I don't care what it costs, she went on. Mess with the lights, the sound system, cause a significant delay, anything you can think of to force them to cancel or restart. Derek, her sleazy brother who worked in tech, the one who always gave me the creeps at family dinners, was clearly her accomplice. This has to end before she gets even more ideas about herself, Veronica said, her voice filled with a desperate, venomous urgency. I didn't wait to hear any more. I grabbed my phone and called my mom, whispering so quietly I could barely hear myself. After I told her everything, she didn't even hesitate. This has gone far beyond emotional abuse, Dahlia, she said, her voice firm and clear. She is now planning actual criminal sabotage. We need to involve your father tonight. But what if Dad doesn't believe me? I asked, my heart racing with a mixture of fear and adrenaline. Then I am getting in my car and driving down there tonight, my mom said, her voice like steel. And we are gonna have a family meeting that he will never ever forget. But first, you need to get that recording into the right hands. Still, the part of me that was so tired of being silenced wanted to take control, to flip her own twisted game against her. So, I made a plan of my own. The next morning at breakfast, I made sure to speak loudly and clearly. You know, I've been thinking about the musical, I said, glancing over at Veronica. And maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not really ready for all this pressure. What if I mess up in front of everyone? I'm thinking about dropping out. Her face lit up with an expression of pure, unadulterated victory. Oh, sweetie, she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. There will be other opportunities, when you're older and more prepared. I nodded, playing my part. Could you call Mrs. Hartley for me? I'm just too embarrassed to explain it all to her. Oh, of course, honey, she said, practically glowing with her triumph. Don't you worry about a thing. I'll handle all of it. She practically danced to her office to make the call. What she didn't know was that I had already called Mrs. Hartley the night before. If my stepmother calls you and says that I'm quitting, I had told her, please don't believe her. And if it's at all possible, please record the conversation. I think she is actively trying to sabotage the show. 20 minutes later, Veronica came back into the kitchen looking utterly bewildered, her fake cheerfulness cracking at the edges. That she said carefully. Mrs. Hartley said that she needs to speak to you directly about any cast changes. Something about school policy. Oh, that's fine, I said casually. I'll call her later. But I didn't. Instead, I went to school and rehearsed as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Veronica spent the day desperately calling anyone and everyone she could think of at the school. Or emotional issues, and unmanageable stage fright. But she had no idea that Mrs. Hartley had already briefed the entire administrative staff. By that evening, why haven't you called Mrs. Hartley? She snapped. Oh, I changed my mind, I said, my voice bright and cheerful. I'm not quitting. Her face twitched through a series of emotions, shock, then rage, then something darker. You little brat, she spat, all of her fake sweetness gone. You think you can manipulate me? I held up my phone, the screen glowing, the recording app still running. I know, I said calmly. That's why I've been recording you for weeks. Her face went pale. For the first time since I had met her, she looked truly, genuinely afraid. What do you want? She asked, her voice small. I said, my voice as cold as steel. You are going to show up on Friday night. You are going to sit in the front row. You are going to smile. And you are going to clap like you are the proudest stepmother in the world. And if you don't, my dad hears everything. The school board hears everything, and so does Derek's employer. She was cornered, and she knew it. Opening night arrived, and on the surface, Veronica kept her word. She sat in the front row next to my dad, smiling and recording the whole performance on her phone like the supportive stepmother she was pretending to be. But I could still see the pure, unadulterated hatred behind her smile, burning in her eyes every single time the spotlight hit me, and the spotlight hit me a lot. The performance was magic. By the end of the final song, the audience was on its feet, the applause a deafening roar. Afterward, a woman came up to me backstage and introduced herself as a voice professor from the state conservatory. She offered me a full scholarship on the spot. My dad was crying with pride. I looked over Veronica, still stuck in her seat, her face a mask of forced smiles and barely concealed fury. That night at dinner, I told my dad everything. I played him the recordings. I showed him the photos. I walked him through months of calculated, insidious emotional abuse. His face changed from confused to horrified to a deep, trembling rage. He turned to Veronica. "Is this true?" he asked. She tried to lie, to cry, to manipulate, but it was too late. "I want you out of my house by tomorrow," he said, his voice shaking. "We had a life," he told her, "one that you built with lies and manipulation. I will not share a home with someone who would emotionally abuse my own daughter." The next morning, Veronica was gone. My dad filed for divorce, but the evidence was undeniable. Derek lost his job. And 3 months later, a letter arrived. It was my official, upgraded acceptance to the state university with a full scholarship. My dad had it framed and hung it on the wall, right where Veronica's wedding photo used to be. 2 years later, I started college, with a double major in music and psychology. I didn't just want to perform. I wanted to understand the kind of person Veronica was, and I wanted to help protect other young people from becoming victims like I had been. I started a blog, sharing my story and offering advice to other teens dealing with toxic family dynamics. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of messages poured in, each one a heartbreaking story of manipulation and abuse. I realized that Veronica hadn't just given me pain, she had given me a purpose. She had taught me how to spot manipulation, how to fight back, and how to protect my own light from those who would try to dim it. I started leading workshops for teens, my favorite session titled, "When Adults Act Like Mean Girls," because that's exactly what Veronica had been. A grown woman who saw a teenager's competition and declared a silent, psychological war. My message was always the same: healthy adults don't feel threatened by children, they cheer for them. So, if someone in your life keeps telling you to aim lower, you need to ask yourself, what do they stand to gain from your failure? My dad eventually remarried a kind, grounded woman who celebrated my successes. And as for Veronica, her pattern continued. 2 more marriages, 2 more divorces, each one imploding when her new husband saw how she treated their children. Her cruelty had finally caught up with her. I'm 22 now, about to graduate with honors, with a fellowship to study music therapy. I perform regularly and I teach voice lessons, helping others find their own voice, both literally and emotionally. And every time I walk onto a stage, I think about that night, the night Veronica tried her hardest to silence me. She failed. And in doing so, she gave me the most powerful gift of all, the unshakable, irrefutable knowledge that no one can dim your light unless you let them.